Adam, you were talking about posse comitatus during the break, the militarization. The political establishment wants to convert us to a command and control system. This is Rand Corporation all the way, the domestic stabilization force that they called for in the 80s. This is a plan. What is your take on where this is going, how this is going to unfold? And am I wrong? Is it just that because of YouTube and because of cameras we know about more of this? Or is it getting worse? And tell us about some of your other high-profile cases.
Well, I've seen it get worse in just the 10 years that I've been practicing this kind of law. I think that when you militarize the police and you don't train them properly, which I think happens a lot, especially in this situation, you're going to see more and more about this where there's a mentality among certain police officers that it's a war zone out there. I mean, you've heard them say that. I had a case, it was a high-profile case that one of the officers talked about boots on the ground in a certain neighborhood. That is a military term. And if they're using that kind of term in policing, you know what the mentality is. So I think that it's going to get worse. I think I've seen it get worse just in the cases I've handled. And again, the biggest problem I have with it, which is, of course, first, the loss of life and this young man being hurt so bad in this case, but it's the lying that occurs afterwards. It is the constant lying by government officials.
And police admit they're trained how to lie on the stand, and the gullible public doesn't even know that.
Right. I think that police, more than anyone, are trained when it comes to criminal cases, for example, to testify in the right way, if you will. They are trained how to testify, and they're very good at testifying because that's what they do. So when something like this occurs, they're very smooth. They're very smooth in how they talk about it. And what's very disturbing to me, and I know you talk a lot about this, is when you talk about media, the mainstream media's main source for most stories is police. It's a lot of criminal stories. It's a lot of stuff that sells. So they have these connections in the police department. And in order to have connections, in order to have Chief Acevedo call you back, you cannot expose them for what they're doing. When they hear stories from the media is getting the stories from the police. They do not want to burn those bridges. So when something like this...
Well, I'll say instinctively mainstream media just grovels regardless.
Right.
And just takes whatever they say and then even dolls it up. I mean, I've worked in radio, in TV, and I've watched the groveling behind the scenes to people in uniform.
I mean, I sat through where I handled a trial last year where the way the media covered it, even when the evidence was clear in a courtroom, they just kept repeating the party line. The issue in this case was whether a police officer got hit by a car and they opened fire into this car. The evidence was clear that the officer was never hit by a car. Clear as can be. Even the defense lawyer admitted that. But yet the media, from day one, just repeated what the police said. He was hit by a car. He was hit by a car. And it's just this reflexive, oh, if the police say it, it must be true. And that's why this case is so powerful.
Well, look at that woman in D.C. She ran into a checkpoint in a drill with Army, we now learn.
Right.
She ran, barely hit a cone, one of those barrels. They chased her down and killed her.
Right.
Well, she had a reason to run.
Well, and that's on the Noe case, for example, when he's in the nurse's office, there's some claims that he was screaming, crying, and then apologizing. And they've jumped on this, say, oh, you know, look, we were right. Well, first of all, we don't know if he actually was apologizing.
People always beg for their lives.
What would you do if the government has just attacked you and you've sustained a traumatic brain injury? He was scared.
Well, that's what Kelly Thomas does. He goes, I'm sorry, please, whatever you say, Daddy, God, Daddy, Daddy, bam, 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 Daddy, help me, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy.
I mean, you have someone with a bat.
I'm sorry.
Who is coming after you, and, you know.
That'd be like a psychopath torturing some kid to death in a dungeon, and the kid's saying they're sorry, and the psychopath goes, see, you are bad. Here's the pliers. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I think that these are very scary situations for people, and it goes back to, I think people need to be very skeptical of when the government does this. They are
well, yeah, when people grovel to government, you get Nazi Germany. This isn't the American way. I mean, we had cases out in the Old West where you'd have corrupt sheriffs doing stuff like this, and they'd overthrow them.
Right.
Since when did America become about groveling to government?
I think that one of the big problems in these cases is that police are very protected by immunity laws. It is very difficult to bring a federal civil rights case.
They didn't used to have all this immunity.
Absolutely not. And the immunity gets worse and worse. And what immunity means is they can't be sued. You can't sue your government in a lot of these situations. And when you sue the government, they have about 50 different ways they can get the case kicked out of court. And again, that's the government controlling the game here. They are not held to be accountable for what they do. The police will circle the wagons, like in this case, say, oh, he had to do what he had to do. He was being threatened, when he wasn't. anything. We've seen this in some cases I've handled in Austin. The chief doesn't follow what internal affairs wants. The chief's going to make his own decision. And so I think that the problem is one of arrogance. It's one of they feel they can do whatever they want. They will not be held accountable. And what happens is things like this. Innocent, young children get very seriously hurt for the rest of their life.
Well, I'm not a star lawyer like you, but what I've seen in the cases that win, you just show they were acting outside their capacity, that they've lied. You go after the school for not rendering the aid for 2 hours. I mean, you know what to do. Fire torpedoes on every front. You're going to sink them.
Right. Well, it's going to be a tough case, but we're very confident we can prevail.
Are you going to later probably go after the fact they didn't render care?
Absolutely. We've sued the school district as well.
Yeah, I knew that, but I mean, you got them right there.
Well, it's going to be, like I said, I am certain there were a lot of emails that were sent in the 24 hours after this, a lot of communications.
The cover-up is proof of the crime.
We will get all of that evidence, and we will see what's there.
Now, let me say this about the Austin police. I mean, I've been all over the country, and overall, they seem nice and professional, most of them I run into, compared to some of the other cities I've been in, where the police are downright scary.
I totally agree with that.
I mean, the Houston police are downright scary.
And I've handled cases in Chicago, and that's just a different level of policing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the cops there one time, I was filming on the street, and they said, don't do that. And normally I'd argue, and I could tell that these cops were not like wimps, like acting like they were going to hurt me. They were looking at me like these detectives, and they were going to really hurt me.
Right.
And they were looking at me. They go, listen, don't do it again. And they didn't say anything else. They were like, I could tell. They were criminals.
Right.
And I was like, wow.
And that's, I do feel that about the Austin police. I think overall, compared to other departments, they're good. But when things happen that are bad, they have an inability to admit they did wrong, and that's the problem. And
they've got Mr. Slick. I mean, he is unbelievable.
He's very good. He's very good, and that's what the city council wants. They put it all on his hands to go talk to the media and schmooze the media and sell the public on a certain narrative. And so that'll be curious what happens on this case.
I mean, here's the deal. I don't want the police killing my kids sometime if they mouth off. I mean, it's scary.
And that's a good point. You know, when you put police officers in a high school, it's high school. Things are going to happen in the halls of a high school, such as a fight between two girls.
I mean, I got in fights with my coaches and stuff where they, you know, and then they were so macho, you know, they wouldn't like press charges on me because they grabbed me and then I elbowed them, so they punched me in the head, and then I punched them. My dad didn't go after them because I had a big black eye from the coach.
Right.
I mean, it's just disgusting. It's I would have been killed probably.
And that's the scary thing. We're not talking that this case occurred on the dark streets at 3 a.m. This was in a well-lit high school hallway at 10:30 in the morning on a Wednesday. It's high school. Why are you tasing a child?
Well, De Rivera did a good job. Pulled the girl off. You see his body language? The cops put their hand on him, pushed him over here. They just kill him. They tried to kill him.
Right. And trust me, it was a life or death situation for a while after this occurred. I mean, he was very close to death, and he's going to have to deal with the traumatic brain injury the rest of his life. For what? For what? It's completely unjustified in every regard.
Well, I mean, do the police want their kids being treated like this? That's the golden rule. Treat people like you want to be treated. You want to have a macho, tough guy position like a cop. Don't be scared, literally wetting yourself, or like an attack dog, ready to attack everybody out there.
Right.
I mean, you'll be like an American bulldog that's not aggressive, it's not mean unless you attack it, then it's vicious. You need to be manly like Matt Dillon and not just go around attacking innocent people. You're supposed to fight real thugs. But instead, most police I know, take Travis County, they're completely scared of like the real motorcycle gangs, the real drug dealers,
right?
The banditos. The police don't dare mess with banditos. I mean, it's pathetic, but they'll kill little kids.
Well, I think that it's a very big problem. And the truth of the matter is most officers go through their career, never pull a taser. They never pull their gun. It's when it happens and then they kill someone who is innocent or seriously hurt someone who's innocent and then start lying about what happened. And then you're right, rally around this. Will we protect and serve? We're good people. You need to support us. It's like, look, I support the police, but just like in any industry, if you do wrong, you should be held accountable. And that's the big problem here.
Well, it will be their undoing. And the whole authoritarian regime's arrogance, because they're just where the rubber meets the road, the establishment wants this attitude. And police should realize this is going to discredit them. They've got to stop this, or they'll become like police in third world countries who are the plague. Listen, Attorney Adam Lowy, thank you so much. Plug your website for folks that want to learn more.
My website's loweyfirm.com, L-O-E-W-I firm.com, and I handle these civil rights cases and personal injury cases.
Thanks for coming in, buddy.
Thank you.
Have you ever been threatened over what you do?
No, but I'm careful.
All right, buddy, take care.
Thanks.
Why is nascent iodine so important?
Nascent iodine is so important because it goes directly to the thyroid. It's not bonded to a salt, which means it doesn't have to be broken down, and it's the most usable form. It's what the body uses. It's what the body is designed to use. If you have low energy levels, if you have pains, if you have thyroid problems, if you don't feel up to par, well, they've proven now that the fluoride and a lack of iodine causes a decreased IQ because you have all this stuff that builds up inside your system and builds up and builds up. And that's why some people, when they start taking iodine, will have what's called a Herxheimer reaction or a detoxification reaction. But that's a good sign. That means you're detoxifying all that fluoride buildup, the mercury buildup in there, the bromine buildup in your system, and the chlorine buildup in your system. You don't want those things. All of those things have been proven as carcinogens. That's one of the reasons prostate cancer is on the rise too, is because prostate takes up iodine, and the men that are lacking iodine causes the prostate to become cystic and causes the prostate to swell and eventually leads to prostate cancer. There's been an extreme rise in polycystic ovarian disease, PCOS, with women, fibrocystic breast disease, because iodine is stored in the breast tissue, the ovaries, the prostate glands in men. It's utilized by every single cell in the body.
Why does this almost taste good compared to other iodine that tastes horrible? That's because it's real iodine atomic form.
We wanted something that's going to go straight into the bloodstream and straight into the thyroid gland. We wanted to put it in a vegetable glycerin base. That's a USP kosher certified vegetable glycerin base. And that product is not tested on animals. It's vegan friendly. It's gluten free. It's GMO free.
Of all the things I've done, Nascent Iodine was just absolutely amazing. So we developed with Dr. Group a double strength, low price, InfoWarsLife.com Survival Shield, the Atomic Nascent Iodine, available right now.